There are moments in human connection when a man reveals more than he intends, not through grand declarations but through the subtle fractures in his composure, the pauses between his words, the glimmers of emotion that escape his otherwise controlled surface. Desire, in its purest form, rarely enters the world loudly. It often arrives as a quiet tremor beneath the personality, moving through gesture, reactions, and impulses that even he cannot fully explain to himself. When a man desires you more than he admits, his unconscious begins to speak long before his voice does. You will see it in the way he becomes alert in your presence, as if something within him has awakened from sleep. It is not simply attention, it is a silent recognition, a feeling he cannot place but cannot ignore. Part of him leans toward you without permission, pulled by an invisible thread woven from emotion, instinct, and imagination. He studies you without meaning to, not in a way that seeks to consume, but in a way that seeks to understand. He listens more carefully, remembers details most people forget, anticipates your reactions, and subtly adjusts himself around your comfort. These are not strategies, they are expressions of a psyche responding to something it considers meaningful. Desire is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quiet restructuring of inner priorities. Often he will try to hide it. Many men are taught to fear the vulnerability that desire exposes within them. So he may retreat into small contradictions, appearing distant when he feels closest, acting indifferent when he is the most affected, maintaining a calm surface while currents of emotion surge underneath. His silence is not emptiness. It is the place where he is fighting the conflict between longing and self-protection. There are tiny moments when his desire leaks through the cracks, the slight shift in his posture when you walk into the room, the warmth in his eyes before he consciously regulates it, the way his voice softens when he speaks your name. These small signals are not accidents. They are the expressions of a deeper layer of him that does not obey his deliberate mind. You may also notice that he becomes more present around you, not just physically but emotionally. He reacts more intensely, whether with laughter, surprise, or even frustration. Intense emotions often arise from places where something precious is at stake. Desire brings with it a strange blend of fear and fascination, and the man who hides his longing is often the one who feels it the strongest. Another sign appears in the way he tries to protect your feelings, even in subtle ways. He may choose his words more carefully, show concern when you seem hurt, or feel uneasy when you pull away emotionally. His instinct is not driven by logic. It is driven by attachment growing roots somewhere deep within him. A man can ignore his thoughts, but he struggles to ignore the places where his heart begins to invest itself. There is also a certain tension around him, an internal struggle between admitting what he feels and maintaining the boundaries he believes he must uphold. Desire brings him face to face with his own vulnerabilities, and that confrontation makes him cautious. So he reveals himself in fragments, a meaningful glance, a lingering moment, a question asked with more feeling than necessary. Pieces of truth escape him, even when he tries to keep everything locked inside. What is most telling is how he responds to your presence compared to the presence of others. His energy shifts, his defenses soften, his attention sharpens, his irritation grows when someone else takes your time. His warmth deepens when he senses closeness. These emotional shifts are not random, they are the psyche's way of signaling what matters. And yet, even with all these signs, he may not admit how deeply he feels, because desire threatens the stability of the image he has built of himself. It challenges the boundaries he believes he must maintain. It exposes needs he does not want to show, and so he hides not because he does not feel enough, but because he feels too much. If you look closely, you will see that the man who hides his desire is often the one who is most profoundly affected by you. His longing exists not on the surface but in the deeper layers where instinct, emotion, and imagination intertwine. He may not speak the truth aloud, but his unconscious speaks constantly through the shifts in his behavior, the softness in his eyes, and the quiet way he aligns himself with you without ever saying why. A man may deny his feelings with words, but his inner world cannot remain silent. His actions reveal the gravity of his desire, and in the spaces between what he says and what he shows, the truth waits patiently to be seen. When a man desires you more than he admits, the truth emerges not from his deliberate choices, but from the quiet, unguarded regions of his inner world where instinct and emotion speak more honestly than the voice he uses in daily life. He may believe he is composed, rational, and in full control of himself, yet desire has a way of reshaping the subtle architecture of his behavior long before he becomes aware of it. His unconscious begins to react, to arrange itself around you, to attune itself to your presence. As though you carry a kind of psychological gravity that draws him closer without his permission. You may notice the way his gaze lingers half a second longer than necessary, as if something in you pulls his attention inwards, not just toward your appearance, but toward the meaning you hold for him. His eyes soften instinctively, revealing a depth of emotion that contradicts the calm expressions he tries to maintain. He listens to you with a heightened sensitivity, absorbing each detail not out of politeness but because a deeper part of him is mapping who you are, searching for connection, resonance, and emotional familiarity. He remembers small things you say, not because he tries to, but because they lodge themselves in a place he cannot consciously control. Desire sharpens his awareness, the tone of your voice, the way you express your feelings, the rhythm of your presence, all take on significance. He becomes quietly attuned to your emotional shifts, responding before he even understands why they matter to him so much. His body subtly orients toward you when you speak. Even in a crowded room, his attention naturally gravitates to you, as if an invisible thread pulls him in your direction. He tries to regulate his reactions, but each attempt exposes another layer of truth. His calm facade cracks in small ways: a quick inhale when you brush past him, an unplanned softness when you smile at him, a flicker of jealousy he tries to disguise when someone else draws your attention. These emotional tremors reveal the inner conflict between what he feels and what he believes he must hide. There is a tension in him, a push and pull between longing and restraint, as if he fears the vulnerability that desire forces him to confront. He may become slightly awkward in your presence, not because he lacks confidence, but because the emotional charge you evoke destabilizes the polished version of himself he presents to the world. His voice may deepen unconsciously, or he may speak more gently without realizing why. He offers help in small ways, stepping into your emotional space with a protective instinct that he cannot fully explain to himself. These are not strategic gestures, they are spontaneous responses born from the emotional significance you hold. He becomes more aware of how he affects you and more sensitive to how you affect him. He notices your discomfort quickly, reacts to your sadness with an unspoken urgency, and experiences an unusual restlessness when he senses you pulling away. His desire expresses itself through care, through attention, through the subtle reorganization of his priorities around your well-being. Even when he tries to maintain emotional distance, his unconscious betrays him. He positions himself near you without thinking, finds excuses to interact, or creates opportunities to be included in your world. When he speaks to you, his emotional energy rises to the surface, shaping the tone and rhythm of his words with a warmth he doesn't extend to others. If you laugh, something inside him opens. If you are hurt, something inside him tightens. This attunement is not casual. It is evidence of a deeper pull he has not yet admitted. You can observe the way he grows unusually quiet when you talk about people who matter to you, as if he is measuring his place in your emotional landscape. The conflict within him intensifies because desire awakens both hope and fear, hope of closeness and fear of exposure. His more guarded behaviors also reveal this hidden longing. He may distance himself suddenly, not because he feels less, but because he feels too much. He may act indifferent in moments where he is actually overwhelmed. He may retreat into silence to regain the sense of control he loses around you. This inconsistency is not confusion, but emotional self-protection. Inside him, a deeper intelligence is at work, responding to you with instincts older than thought, older than doubt. His psyche recognizes something meaningful in you, something that stirs his inner world in ways he cannot rationalize. And before he speaks a word, before he allows himself the courage to admit what he feels, his unconscious reveals the truth through every micro-expression, every shift of energy, every unguarded moment where he becomes a little more transparent, a little more open, a little more affected, revealing desire long before he ever says it aloud. When a man desires you more than he admits, his emotional reactions begin to reveal the depth of his inner conflict, the quiet tension between what he feels and what he believes he must conceal. These reactions are rarely deliberate. They arise from the deeper layers of his psyche, where instinct and vulnerability intermingle. You will notice that he responds to you with a level of emotional intensity he does not display with others. Even the smallest interaction can unsettle or excite him, shifting his composure in ways he cannot fully manage. If you speak kindly to him, something inside him warms too quickly. If you seem distant, A faint shadow crosses his expression before he masks it behind practiced calm. This fluctuation is not weakness, it is the sign of someone who feels more deeply than he is prepared to confess. His emotions begin to betray him, illuminating the space where desire has taken root. He may react strongly to moments you would expect him to take lightly, such as where someone else compliments you, or when you seem particularly close to another person. A subtle tightness emerges around his eyes, his posture shifts, or his voice takes on a restrained edge, as if he is attempting to hold back a response he does not want you to notice. Jealousy, frustration, or impatience leak through the cracks, not because he's possessive, but because his heart has become involved in ways he has not yet acknowledged. These reactions happen quickly, instinctively, before his rational mind has a chance to intervene. Even his laughter carries meaning. When you say something that amuses him, there is an extra layer of warmth in his smile, something unguarded that slips through before he readjusts his expression. His joy around you comes more easily, more impulsively, as though your presence ignites emotions he usually keeps carefully contained. But it is not just joy, there is also a heightened sensitivity to your opinions, your moods, your emotional climate. If you are upset, he feels tension rise within him. If you smile, the atmosphere inside him shifts instantly. His internal state begins to mirror yours in subtle ways, revealing the pull you have over him, even when he tries to remain detached. The emotional conflict becomes even more apparent in the moments when he grows distant. Many interpret this as lack of interest, yet distance is often a sign of overwhelming desire. When he retreats, it is because his feelings are too strong, too exposed, too disruptive to the identity he tries to maintain. He may suddenly limit conversations, shorten responses, or act preoccupied. But beneath that withdrawal lies a turbulent emotional world. He is not indifferent. He is trying to regain control of himself, to steady the inner turmoil your presence stirs in him. The inconsistency of his reactions is another sign of the tension within him. One day he may appear deeply engaged, warm and open, and the next he may seem guarded, composed, or strangely quiet. This inconsistency is not manipulation. It is the outward expression of inner conflict. He wants closeness, but fears the vulnerability that comes with it. He feels drawn to you, but fears that admitting it may shift the balance of the connection or expose parts of himself he is not ready for you to see. His emotions push him forward while his fears pull him back, creating a cycle of approach and retreat that reveals the depth of his desire more clearly than words ever could. His emotional reactions also become amplified when you show him respect, kindness, or genuine interest. If you acknowledge something meaningful about him, he reacts with a mixture of surprise and gratitude, as if he did not expect anyone to notice the deeper layers of who he is. Your validation affects him more than it should, more than he would like to admit. You may see a flicker of softness cross his face, a momentary break in his emotional armor, because desire makes him more receptive to you and more touched by your presence. Even his irritation carries meaning. It is not rooted in annoyance with you, but in the frustration of his own emotional unrest. If you misunderstand him, he may react more sharply than usual, not because he is angry, but because he fears losing the fragile bond forming between you. These emotional surges come from the same place as his longing, a part of him working to reconcile his desire with his fear. He may try to suppress his reactions, to maintain a calm surface, but suppression only reveals the intensity beneath it. You may sense the emotional charge in his voice, the subtle tightness when he tries to downplay his feelings, the carefulness with which he chooses his words around you. He is trying to stay in control, yet control slips away whenever the emotional significance of your presence presses against him. Over time, the emotional conflict becomes impossible for him to hide. His reactions become less about what you do and more about what he feels internally. He becomes hyper-aware of the meaning he assigns to every interaction. Small moments become emotionally loaded. Simple conversations carry unspoken tension, and ordinary encounters feel magnified by the intensity of his desire. His emotional world begins to orbit around you, even if he pretends it doesn't. These reactions expose his truth more clearly than any confession ever could. They show you how deeply he feels, how much he tries to restrain himself, and how powerfully you affect him on levels he cannot fully articulate. In the quiet tremors of his emotional responses, the depth of his unspoken desire becomes unmistakable. When a man desires you more than he admits, one of the most revealing signs emerges in how he becomes quietly protective of your emotions. even when he tries to appear unaffected. This protective instinct does not come from a place of obligation or duty, but from a deeper, emotional resonance where your well-being begins to matter to him more than he intended. He pays attention to your mood with a sensitivity he does not display toward others, noticing the subtle shifts in your tone, your expressions, or the quiet pauses in your speech. When something bothers you, his demeanor changes almost immediately, as if your emotional state has the power to influence his own. He may not say much about it, and he may pretend he is simply listening casually, but his entire presence becomes more attentive, more tuned in, more responsive to the underlying feeling you are carrying. This heightened sensitivity reveals a part of him that feels emotionally connected to you beneath the surface of his guarded behavior. You will notice that he chooses his words more carefully around you, not out of fear, but out of respect for the emotional impact his words may have. He becomes thoughtful in how he expresses himself, aware that a careless comment could affect you in ways he wishes to avoid. There is a gentleness that enters his communication, a softened tone, a patient pause before speaking, and a subtle warmth in how he acknowledges your feelings. Even when he tries to maintain emotional distance, this softness betrays him. His desire shapes his interactions into something more mindful, more considerate, and more aware of the emotional space between you. His desire slips into his voice, his eyes, the way he leans in slightly when you speak, and the way he absorbs your emotions as though they touch something personal within him. When you face difficulty or stress, he becomes uncomfortable in a way he cannot fully hide. He may try to offer advice, practical solutions, or reassuring words, but beneath these actions lies a deeper impulse, the desire to ease your pain. Even if he does not know how to help, he feels compelled to try. His presence becomes steadier, quieter, more grounded, as though he wants to create a sense of emotional safety for you without drawing attention to his intention. He may even check in on you later, subtly asking if you are all right, or if things have improved. These small gestures reveal how your emotional state lingers in his mind long after the conversation ends. If he senses someone else hurting you, disrespecting you, or diminishing your worth, something in him shifts. His expression hardens slightly, his focus sharpens, and a protective seriousness comes over him. He may not intervene directly, especially if he is still hiding his feelings, but the emotional reaction is unmistakable. He becomes watchful, alert, quietly standing guard in his own way. This kind of protectiveness does not come from superficial attraction. It emerges from emotional investment, from an instinctive desire to prevent harm from touching someone who has become important to him. Even in moments of conflict or misunderstanding between you, his protective instinct continues to guide him. He may raise his voice slightly out of frustration, but he will rarely allow himself to cross emotional boundaries that could truly hurt you. Instead, he regulates his tone, reins in his emotions, and tries to express himself in a way that preserves connection rather than damages it. His restraint, his carefulness, his effort to avoid causing you pain, or these reveal a depth of feeling he is not prepared to admit openly. He pays attention to your insecurities in a way that surprises even him. When you express self-doubt or discomfort, he responds with an intensity that comes from his desire to ease your inner struggles. He may reassure you, challenge your negative thoughts, or help you see your strengths more clearly. His words hold more conviction because they carry emotional truth. He sees your vulnerabilities not as flaws but as something precious, something he wants to protect gently and respectfully. There is also a certain quiet pride he feels in your accomplishments, even when he tries to hide it. When you succeed, his eyes brighten, and a subtle smile crosses his face before he consciously masks it. He feels a sense of shared joy, as though your victories touch him personally. He may offer congratulations in a calm, understated way, but inside, he feels a warm surge of admiration, that emotional connection celebrating your happiness as if it enhances his own is another sign of the desire he keeps hidden. In group settings, his protectiveness becomes even more noticeable. He observes how others interact with you, paying close attention when someone makes you uncomfortable or dismisses your thoughts. He positions himself in subtle ways, standing near you, redirecting conversation, or simply ensuring that you feel grounded in a social environment. These small actions are often unconscious, born from an inner impulse to create emotional and social safety around you. Even when he acts indifferent or distant, this instinct remains active beneath the surface. If he sees you struggling, his emotional guard loosens, and he steps in without hesitation. If you seem overwhelmed, he becomes calmer, offering stability through his presence. If you appear withdrawn, he approaches with quiet concern, careful not to push too hard. His desire makes him attentive to your emotional boundaries in a way he does not consciously understand, guiding him to respond in ways that honor your inner world. Another subtle layer of his protectiveness appears in how he reacts when you express interest in someone else. Even if he tries to remain composed, a flicker of concern crosses his face. He becomes more observant, more cautious, more attuned to the emotional direction of your interests. This response does not come from jealousy alone. It comes from the fear that someone else may enter your emotional space and cause you pain, or perhaps take a place he secretly longs to hold. He may speak to you with calm logic, encouraging you to make choices that align with your well-being. But beneath the logic lies a deeper emotional truth. He cares too much to remain detached. His advice, his words of caution, his concern all originate from the deeper emotional connection he tries to conceal. Even his silence around you carries a protective quality. When you open up emotionally, he listens with the kind of stillness that reflects genuine care. His silence becomes a sanctuary, a space where your emotions can exist without judgment. He does not try to dominate the conversation or turn it toward himself. Instead, he offers presence, attention, and the quiet assurance that your feelings matter. Through all these subtle behaviors, his protectiveness becomes a window into the depth of his desire. He may never say the words aloud, he may keep his emotions tightly guarded, but his actions reveal the truth. His concern for your emotional safety, his carefulness with your feelings, and the instinctive tenderness he shows all speak the language of a man who desires you far more deeply than he allows himself to admit. When a man desires you more than he admits, one of the clearest revelations appear in how his entire presence shifts around you, often in ways he cannot consciously regulate. It is not only in what he says or does, but in the subtle energy he carries when you enter the room, the quiet alertness that awakens in him, and the way his attention sharpens instinctively. His posture changes almost imperceptibly. He stands a little taller, becomes more aware of his surroundings, and orients himself in your direction even when he tries to appear casual. Something in him becomes more alive, more attentive, more attuned to the smallest details of your presence. This is not performance, it is the natural response of someone whose inner world is stirred by your existence. When you speak, his focus narrows as if the rest of the environment fades slightly, replaced by a heightened awareness of your voice, your tone, the meaning behind your words. His reactions become more textured, layered with subtle emotions that surface despite his attempts to maintain composure. This shift in presence becomes even more evident in the pauses between your interactions. When he listens to you, there is a depth in his silence, a kind of internal listening that goes beyond the surface level of your words. He processes not just what you say, but how you say it, the feeling beneath your expressions, the emotional message hidden within your tone. His desire fuels a form of sensitivity that makes him notice details others overlook. It is as though your presence activates a part of him that operates between instinct and emotion, a part that is always watching, reading, and responding on levels he cannot fully acknowledge. Even when he moves around you, there is a certain carefulness, a quiet attempt to align himself within your emotional space without appearing intrusive. One of the most telling signs of this shift is the way his energy changes when you are near. His usual state of being becomes charged with a subtle emotional intensity that affects everything from the rhythm of his breathing to the softness in his gaze. If he tries to act indifferent, the effort itself becomes visible. His body stiffens slightly, his words become more measured, and his controlled demeanor reveals the very emotion he is attempting to conceal. These contradictions are not signs of confusion but reflections of the internal struggle between desire and self-protection. When someone matters deeply, the psyche becomes divided between the longing to move closer and the fear of exposing vulnerability. This tension radiates through him, shaping his presence into something more complex, more emotionally layered, and more revealing than he intends. You may notice that he becomes more self-aware around you, as though he is silently evaluating how he appears in your eyes. He may adjust his clothing, straighten his posture, soften his expression, or become more deliberate in his gestures. These are not calculated acts, but instinctive reactions that emerge from the desire to appear grounded, capable, and worthy of your attention. Even the small ways he interacts with his environment shift slightly when you are present. He becomes more intentional, more conscious of the impression he makes, even if he pretends not to care. The emotional significance you hold for him activates a deeper instinct within him, the instinct to be seen in the best possible light by someone who matters. Another layer of this shift appears in the way he responds to your presence physically. When you walk into a space, his body may turn toward you before his mind has time to catch up. His eyes might find you even in a crowded room, drawn by an unconscious magnetism he cannot explain. If you sit near him, his posture becomes subtly receptive, as though his body is leaning toward you even when he keeps a polite distance. This physical attunement is not something he plans, it is the expression of an inner pull that guides him silently. You may also notice that he mirrors you in small ways, matching your pace, your gestures, or your expressions without realizing he is doing it. This mirroring is a natural psychological response that occurs when someone feels deeply connected or affected by another person. His presence also becomes more emotionally transparent when he interacts with others while you are watching. He may become slightly more animated, more articulate, or more confident, as though your attention triggers a desire to show his best qualities. Or he may grow quieter, more composed, more focused on maintaining control over the emotional currents within him. Whether he becomes more expressive or more restrained, the shift is always tied to the heightened awareness of your perception. He feels exposed, not in a fearful way, but in a way that makes him more conscious of the emotional stakes involved. Your presence becomes an invisible force that shapes his behavior, revealing the depth of importance he assigns to your perception of him. He also becomes more reactive to the emotional atmosphere between you. If the energy feels warm, he relaxes into it, allowing his natural personality to emerge more freely. If the energy feels uncertain or distant, he becomes cautious, adjusting himself as though trying to navigate an unseen emotional terrain. His sensitivity to this shared emotional field is heightened because desire amplifies awareness. He notices when your tone shifts, when your attention drifts, or when you appear preoccupied. These shifts do not pass by him lightly, they affect him internally, prompting subtle changes in his presence, as though he is quietly trying to recalibrate his emotional alignment with you. One of the most revealing aspects of this shift is how he behaves when he believes you are not paying attention. His eyes may follow you briefly, his expression softening before he quickly masks it. He may move closer without direct intention, drawn by a quiet impulse that pulls him toward the comfort of your presence. He may even appear lost in thought for a moment, as though something about you has stirred a deeper reflection or memory within him. When someone desires more than they admit, the unconscious mind begins to express itself freely in these unguarded moments, revealing truths he would never speak aloud. In conversations, he becomes subtly attuned to your emotional responses. If you react positively, his presence brightens. If you respond coolly, a quiet shadow crosses his demeanor. His desire makes him vulnerable to your emotional influence. Even though he tries to hide it behind a composed surface, he may attempt to ground himself by maintaining a calm, neutral state, but the emotional impact you have on him remains visible. In the subtle tension around his voice, the slight shifts in his expression, or the instinctive adjustments in his tone. Ultimately, the shift in his presence is a reflection of the inner transformation that desire creates within him. He may not speak of it, he may not fully understand it, and he may try to deny it, but his body, his energy, his reactions, and his emotional attunement reveal what words conceal. His presence becomes a quiet confession, an unspoken truth expressed through everything he does when he is near you, exposing the depth of a desire he tries so carefully to hide.